everyone, so today I'm going to show you how to make this magic slider card using elements from the Minecraft Studio Christmas Extravaganza USB. You might have seen my sample, and I know quite on Create and Craft, and quite a few of you have asked how I made it, so I thought I'd put together a quick video to give you an idea of how I do it. There's other ways to make it, I'm sure, but this is the way that I found worked best for me. Okay, so to start off with, what I've done is here telling you all your measurements and what pieces of card you'll need. Now, the reason I did this was because it saves you writing down all the measurements as we go along. Okay, so to start off with, our main card base, so this main bit here, is going to be made from a 10.5 by 8 inch piece of white card. So I've gone ahead and cut that because I'm sure you all can cut a piece of card. And then the next one here, so this is ultimately a piece, the biggest measurements are 4 3/4 by 7.5. We'll trim the other bits down in a minute. So 4 3/4 by 7.5. So that's this one. Now, this piece of card is the bit that's going to make your slider card here. So you want it to be quite a substantial thickness piece of card. Something like the Hunky Dory 350 GSMs would work. Or what I've done here is I've taken two pieces. I've used Colour all-purpose glue, glued the two together, and then I've got one piece. And what this also does is this kind of acts as a third layer, if you like. As it dries really hard, so it's perfect for the shutter, because if you're giving it to children or whatever, they're going to be going like this all the time, so it needs to be something that is quite substantial. Okay, so that's those two. Then it says down here you need a piece of red card, 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. Now, I've put red, I've used red. You can use any colour you like, whatever you want. So again, there's my piece of red. Then we need a gold card that's 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. Again, I've gone ahead and cut that. Then we need our two images. Now, this is the main bit of the card. So first off, it says we want the image printed in colour, and we want it about 6 by 4 centimetres. Now, you don't want it any smaller than 6 by 4. If you go above 6 by 4, that's fine, but you'll end up losing the edges when you put it on. So this is slightly bigger than 6 by 4. It's the complete image with my little dog in the bauble. So this is what's going to go at the back. And then, as it says here, you want the same image printed onto acetate. Now, bring in a piece of white card, you'll see better. There we go. So this one, again created in Minecraft Studio, it's exactly the same, apart from you don't put whatever it is you want to appear in the bauble on this one. You leave it off and it just goes on your printed one, okay? And then what will happen, because these two should be exactly the same size, they'll overlap, and this is the bit to it looking sort of right, as they'll line up perfectly. If you want to see how to put a photograph in the bauble, I know Diane Paternal did some demonstrations when she launched the Minecraft Studio USB. She's also done Facebook Lives, so if you check out either the Create and Craft website, you should, or YouTube, you should be able to find some tutorials that she's done on how to put the photo in. Okay, so that's those two. Right, and then so the next bit is we need to start doing all our cutting and scoring and cutting out our apertures. So let's go back to our original piece of card. So what we've got on here, as with anything, I've put dashed lines where you need to score, solid lines where you need to cut, and then what I've done is I've put some scribble where we're going to cut it off. Okay, so you can see I've done 1/2 inch and 5.5 inches. Then we turn it round and I've done 1/2 inch and 7.5 inches. And then putting it back round this way, you'll notice here there's two very little lines that just go from this 1/2 inch line up, one at 7/8 of an inch and one at 5 1/8 of an inch, and that's quite important, that little score line there, so we'll add those in afterwards. Let me bring my scoreboard in. Okay, so to start off with, we had score at 1/2 inch, which is there, and score at 5.5 inches, which is there. We turn it round, we're going to score at 1/2 inch, and we're going to score at 7.5 inches. Put it back to where we started, and we're going to do our scores at 7/8 just down to this line, and 5 1/8 just down to that. Okay, so hopefully you can see where those score lines are. But what we're now going to do is we're going to cut down this card. So if we look back on this one, you'll see that we don't want any of this bit, which will be this bit. We don't want any of the bottom bit, which will be that bit. And then we've got some corners we're going to cut off. Okay, so we are cutting this bit here out. You don't need to do this bit, it's just so you can see a bit easier what it is that you've got to do. So that's those two bits. We've then going to make some little corners here. This is because these will fold in and we don't want them overlapping. This one is going to cut off all of that bit. It's there. This one is going to cut off all of that bit. And then the last one is this one here. I'm going to cut off all of this bit. Okay, so you can cut it out however you want. I find it just as easy to do it with scissors. Let's go ahead and cut it out. If you have a bit of orange, well, if you have a bit of pen, I've got orange left showing, it doesn't matter because it's going to be inside so you won't see it. So don't worry too much about that. The only bit you don't want it is here, this little bit I'm cutting now. So you will see that on the front of the card if it goes over onto here. Okay, so therefore we have our main shape now for this one. So next we need to cut, no actually before we cut the aperture, let's do this bit before I forget. So these two marks that we put on here, there's one there and there's one there, down to this 1/2 inch line. What we're going to do is between that point and that point, we're actually going to cut a slit across it. Now you can use a paper trimmer. I've just got my craft knife here. It's actually a Craft Master one from Highlight Crafts, and it cuts ever so well. So if we just cut down there, use a ruler if you're not confident. And then we've got our slit there. It's very important to leave these two bits joined, okay? So just be careful of that. Right, now the aperture. You can just measure it and cut it out yourself. I personally like to use nesting dies because you get your little bit of a beveled edge. So I've got a nice set here of rectangular nesting dies. Now I have put on here that I use the 7th, 9th and 11th in. Now that might not make much sense, but hopefully when I show you it'll make a bit more sense. So when I say 7th in, I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. So that's that one there. So we want that one. Then we want the 9th, so that's the 8th. We don't want that, but we want the 9th. That's the 10th. We don't want that one, but we want the 11th. These nesting dies, I can't remember if they're 2 Red Robins Fundamentals or Carnation Crafts, but you can use any rectangular nesting dies. You'll just have to work it out to whatever sort of works in size for your 6x4. Right, so we've got 3 different sizes now, and this is going to cut out all of the bits that we need. So to start off with, we're going to cut out of this main white one, and to do that we want the middle one of the 3. Okay, so Now what you want to do is take your time doing this bit, because if you put this on wonky at this stage, you're going to have a wonky front to your card. So take your time in getting it lined up properly. Use some low tack tape to keep it in place. And always, with any die that you're doing, if you can, always stick your tape on the bit that's going to be the waste, not the bit you're going to keep, just in case it sticks and damages the card. I've put 4 pieces on because I did it with 2 before and it moved, so I, just to be on the safe side, will do it with 4. So bring in my very warm plate. This is an A5 die cutting machine. I'm using it because it's next to me, so obviously that is too wide to cut. However, because we've got our crease here, it's not a problem. We just put the plastic between it and the magnetic and the plate on the top, and pop it through your die cutting machine. If you've got an A4 one, obviously you don't need to do that bit. There's our cracking, satisfying cracking of the plate going through. Okay, so it's actually split my plate. I'm going to have to get another one now. Right, so there we go. Take that one out. So there you go, we've got our, that's not the right way around. Try putting it the right way around, that would be better. So there we have the front aperture of our card. So this is where everything's going to go into. Right, next off, I'm going to cut the red one. So this was our 6 3/4 by 4 3/4. And this time, of our 3, we're going to be using the smallest one, because if I bring this one back in, it's the smallest aperture from the red. So for this you want to use some fairly substantial cardstock. This is Adorable Squirrable. Don't want to really be using paper, but because you want it to add a bit of strength to this front bit of the card. So again, tape it down. Bringing where you can, taping it, putting the tape on the bit that's going to in effect be the waste. So let's put that one through. See if my plate will hold up to it. It is going through. Nearly through. There we go. Okay, so that's cut out beautifully. So there we have now our red bit. Take this off. So that's going to be the bit that is going to go inside there. Okay. So now we'll do our gold layer. Right, so for the gold, I've got it here. So for the gold, this time, because it actually makes a frame, we're going to cut both the inside and the outside, so we get this lovely beveled edge on both. So for this, we want the biggest one and we want the middle one. Now, if you are used to doing this kind of thing, you can just tape it all down in one go. So you put it where you want it, then pop your tape on. However, if you've not done it before, you'll probably find it much easier to put one on and pop a little bit of tape on to hold it in place, like so. Doesn't matter if it's not square, it only matters that this one is square to the outside one, and then you can line that up and just tape them both down then together. Move that one a little bit, I think. Right. And then we'll pop that one through the die cutting machine. Nearly there with all the cutting. The last one we'll be doing is these. Now you can cut these just on a guillotine, but I find it just as easy to pop it through the die cutting machine, and you can be sure that you've cut them to the right size and that they're equal size. Right, so go on that one. We don't want that one, but we want this one. So that's going to be our frame for the front. Okay, now the last one, as I said, is going to be these two. Now we're going to use our biggest one for this when we cut it. Now, if you try to cut acetate, quite often it will just press it, it won't actually cut through. That's because it's plastic and your die likes something to be able to grip onto. So a tip is, any acetate you're cutting, put a bit of scrap paper underneath and then it will cut through absolutely fine. That said, rather than using a piece of scrap paper, because I want to cut both of these, I'm going to use that one as my, what I could use a piece of scrap paper for. Cut them both out at the same time. So it doesn't matter 100% if this is exactly in the right place, because you're going to move it later. But what we want to do is just make like a hinge around it. That'll keep them both in the same place. Then we're going to pop our die. Now you can see how I've got some white top and bottom. That's not a problem because it's not actually going to be visible once we've got the frames around it. So then we'll pop that through the die cutting machine, and then that's the last of the dies. Acetate has even more cracking going through, as you can probably hear. Right, so let's go to those. There's the paper one, and there's the acetate one, cut beautifully through. Right, okie dokes. Now we've got all our main elements here, so now it's a case of popping them all together. So to start off with, we're going to use the red one, which is going to go inside. This adds some strength because you'll see it's a little bit flimsy at the moment. This is going to add some strength to the front. So how I put it on is I just get some wet glue. You can use tape for this if you want. I find wet glue just gives me a bit of movement time if I'm not happy it's the exact placing. Okay, so let's turn it over. Right, so that is not even, that needs to go up. Push that one up a bit. Push that one, oh, too much. There we go, happy with that. Once you're happy, press it down. And that does, see, it's not so flimsy anymore, you've got quite a bit more depth to it. Okay, so the next one, our gold one, again you can use tape or wet glue. I'm using wet glue. If you're using this, you can, because it's on the back of the mirror card, but you got to be very careful not to get it on the front of the mirror card, because it does react with the coating on it. So that's not you'll get some marks on it. And that one is just going to sit over there. Because it's so thin, you can see how it distorts, so you just need to move it to manipulate it to get it to the right place once you're happy with it. Now, if you can see, I've got a little bit of overhanging red there, so all I need to do is cut it off, because we don't want to see that. There we go. Right, so that's the frame. Now then, the next bit is to stick your piece of acetate. Now it's going to go on the inside, and this has to be stuck with tape. Now, because they're going to be handled a bit, I would recommend using some red liner tape. You can use double-sided if you don't have red liner tape. Red liner tape is just a bit more heavy duty. So if you've got your little fingers, little grandkids, kids, nieces, nephews playing with them, you're getting a bit manhandled, your red liner tape's your best friend there. So that's 2. What I'm doing here, you'll see, is I'm putting it right up to the edge that will be visible. Now this is going to mean that there's going to be some loose acetate here where it's not stuck, but that doesn't matter. What you want to do is make sure that it is tight up to your front here. Okay. Right, then we take these off. Concentration now. 3, 4. Okay. Now you want to make sure, up until now it didn't really matter which way up we had the car, but at this point you need to make sure you put your acetate up the right way. So the bit where we cut the slit earlier, remember cutting the slit, that is going to be the top. Okay, so you need to make sure that that stays at the top. Now you need to be quite careful here in where you position it, so you can get it even before you press it down, because once you press it down, it's red liner tape like that, it ain't gonna come off. I think we're okay there. That's it. Lovely. Okay, so there we go. There's our acetate stuck in. Just burnish down the back like so. Okay, then the last bit we're going to do is to pop the bauble inside the actual image. Now what you need to do, and take your time doing this, is it needs to line up exactly. So what you want to do is use some wet glue for this. You don't want to be using tape because you have to get it in the right place first time, and well, yeah, if you can do that, you're a better person than I am. Okay, so then if we start on this side, you press this down, you can make sure you get the right place. There we go. Squash it down, and we're just going to smooth that one down. So you'll see there that they exactly overline. We've got our bauble there. Okay, right, the last bit we need to make that we didn't make was from our 4 3/4 by 7.5 piece of card. This is to make the pull-out mechanism that goes inside. So what we need to do for this one is, you'll see that at the top it's only going to be 4 inches, and then you've got little sticky out bits either side that are 3/8 by 3/8 of an inch. Now you can measure it, do it with a ruler. I always find it just as easy to grab a scoreboard and pop some score marks in. So I'm picking up the 3/8 one, and I'm going to roughly where I think 3/8 will be the other way. Turn this round, find the 3/8, and we're going to score all the way down. Okay, and then we're going to do the same at the bottom. We're going to find 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go in to roughly where we think 3/8 will be. And this time we're going back 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So that now gives him the lines to cut. Use a paper trimmer, guillotine, whatever you want. I'm quite happy just using the scissors to cut it. So that's one. She says, so she goes off slightly. White on white is not the easiest to see, I have to say. Right, now these little bits here, the purpose of them is so that when you pull this, it stops. Because if you didn't have that, it's just going to come straight out the top of the card. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this one and we're going to feed it through the slit that we made at the top of the card. Okay, and then what we're going to do is fold down our flaps, fold in our flaps, and you can use tape or wet glue, whichever you'd rather use for this. It is entirely your choice. I'm going to just use some wet glue. Pop some wet glue along here. Coming out a bit quick there. Spread it a little bit, I think. Okay. Oh, look at all that glue. That wasn't a good thing. Where that came from. Try not to do what I did and get the glue on there. It does rub off, like so. Right. Well, after that, let's fold these in, and we're going to fold this over. Now you're going to start this side, and you're going to push it across flat. Now we need to give that a little bit of time to make sure it sticks properly and closes itself before we do the grand reveal of what it looks like. So in the meantime, let's pop the little pull me thing on the top there so that people know what to do. So to do this, I've got a bit of an offcut from the centre of the red on there. It's big, so we'll cut that down a bit. Just run it outside the paper trimmer. So it's going to be just as easy to cut a new one up here. Right. So that's the bit over there. Did I cut? Oops. That works. And then what I've also done, and I'll put a link to below, but you can just do it in Word, is I've done some pull me's in different fonts. So if you want to use one of these, feel free, go ahead. If you want to do your own, do your own. So let's go with this one here, I think. If you've got a laser printer and a foiling machine, why not foil that? Let's pop it on the top. I'm going to trim a bit more off that one actually. It's a little bit big for what I want. Right, it's better. So, bit of glue. It's going to go at the top there. A bit more on this one. You can ink this, you can, well, you can handwrite it and do whatever you like really. Just like that. Okay, let's push that back down. Make sure these are sticking properly. Then let's pop a bow at the top. I can't tie bows, not without using something, so I've got the Hunky Dory bow maker. I don't know what it's called here. So a bit of red ribbon, and we're going to wrap it round, pop it underneath, and just tie it over the top. So, she says, a very short bit of ribbon. Oh, dearie me. Let's try again. Yo, put it tight. Now I'm going to trim off these, and then I'm okay with it being short and not worrying about it coming undone, because I'm going to pop some glue from the glue gun on the back, and then we'll use that to stick it on. So that will go on right at the top of my bauble there. I'm going to use, again, I did have some somewhere. Where did I put them? There they are. These are Hunky Dory Diamond Sparkles. I am a fan, I have to say. This is one of the darker ones. I might pop a little bit of glue on the back from the glue gun. Stick it on there. Oops. There we go. And then it's up to you what you want to use. I've got some bits left over from the St. Nick of Time collection that was on last Christmas. Create and Craft. So I've got some things in there. Little snowman. Let's pop him on there, I think. Bit of shape, and put some glue down the middle. You can use a foam pad, you can use whatever you like to put this on, but so pop him there, and then we'll have a little robin on the other side, I think. So, there we go. Right, now the moment of truth. So when somebody pulls that, there you go. You've got your image revealed inside. And then up to you whether you want to give it to them like that and just write your message on the back, or whether you want to mount it on another card. I'll leave that bit up to you. I've got glue strings on that. So there you go. That's how to make the magic slider card. I hope it helps, and like I said, I'll pop